Step 4. Now, only now, I turn the satellite. And here's the interpretive key that the whole session has been waiting for, and it is the thing I most want you to take away today. A satellite is an orbit, not in exile. That distinction is everything. It registered during the somatic filter. It carried weight in my hand, which means it is functional. It is not noise, and it is not a card that wandered in by accident. My body flagged it as active, especially as it flagged the 4 in the center. So it is not the odd one out. It is not the reject. It is not the thing that does not belong. A satellite represents a factor connected to the center by relevance, but not by proximity. Something monitoring from a distance, something deliberately uninvolved, or something simply not yet ready to join. And now I read it against the cluster, which is the only way it can be read. The cluster was a fully internal situation, something the person already understands and is actively working on. So what is this card sitting 3 card widths away watching? It reads as an outside perspective on a situation the person believes they already fully understand. Look at how much of that reading came from the geometry rather than from the card. The distance told me it was maintaining separation. The cluster told me what it was maintaining separation from. The somatic weight told me it was relevant rather than noise. The card's own content is the last and smallest contribution. It names what kind of outside perspective it is. That is what read geometry before meaning produces. The card did not tell me the story. The card filled in the final blank of a sentence the geometry had already written. Step 5, the last move, I return to the void. And this is a step that people skip because by now the cards have all been read and the session feels finished. It is not finished. On day 9, I told you the void is often the most important information in the layout. And here is a session where that is plainly true. The void between the cluster and the satellite is not leftover space. It is the orbit. It is the distance the satellite is maintaining on purpose. And its size is the data. Remember what I measured before a single card turned. This gap is wider than the entire cluster is across. That is not a small separation. Whatever this card is watching from, it is watching from a long way out. And by their proportion, the distance is doing real work. It is not incidental. It is not about to close. And then, what did not appear? Nothing landed between them. The channel is completely clear. There is no card mediating, no bridge. Nothing occupying the space between the center and the thing observing the center. In a solar system, that channel might have held a mediating card. Here, it holds nothing at all. That is the shape of the absence, and I write it in the void analysis field. No mediation. Nothing occupies the orbit. The distance is unbroken. And here's what I want you to see, and it is the payoff of the entire session. That last finding, the clear channel, is the one I could have had at the very beginning. It was available to me the moment the cards landed, before I knew a single one of them. I did not need the meanings for it. I only needed to look. The void was talking to me at the start of the session. It took me the whole session to be able to hear it. And now before I close, the field that keeps all of this honest, page 3, the Disconfirmation Metric. What would prove this reading wrong? Here is what I wrote, and notice that it is not about the meaning at all. It is about the geometry, because the geometry is what I actually claimed. If the satellite is a real feature and not an artifact of how I deal, it will not follow my dealing hand when I rotate the table on day 15. That is day 11's discipline. Rule out the boring cause turned into a dated commitment. Because I might be right-handed, I place cards from the same side every session, and an upper right isolate is exactly what a right-handed person's hand produces when it flings the last card away from the body. That is a completely adequate explanation for everything I just spent 20 minutes reading, and it involves no field, no signal, and nothing but biomechanics. So I will rotate the table tomorrow, and if the satellite dutifully reappears in the upper right, following my hand to its new orientation, then it was my hand, and this entire beautiful reading was a fact about my shoulder. I have written that possibility down in advance in ink on the same page as the reading, so that it cannot be quietly forgotten if tomorrow is inconvenient. And if it rotates with my hand, I will write that down too. That is the promise. That is the only thing that makes any of the rest of it worth writing at all. Note also what I did not write. I did not write if this doesn't feel true anymore. I did not write if nothing develops. Those cannot bite. This one can bite, and it has a date. Step 5 of the log and the end of the session, integration notes. What confirmed the geometry? The void proportion held. The gap I measured before the fling turned out to be the most load-bearing thing in the reading, and it was in my hand before I knew anything. What surprised me? The cluster was flatter than the map suggested. 4 cards in a tight knot looked on the page like they would be dense and urgent. They were not. They were settled. The geometry made a claim, and the cards partially declined it, and that is a real observation, and it goes in the log exactly as it occurred. Notice that I have just recorded a small mismatch between geometry and content. I did not smooth it over. I did not decide the geometry must have been right and the cards subtle. I wrote down that they did not fully agree. In 3 weeks, that entry may be worth more than any of the ones where everything lined up. And then the session closed. The field is closed, which means I do not carry the reading around me for the rest of the day. I do not turn it over on the walk. I do not decide what it means about my life or my work or the person I've been thinking about. I close the field and I stand up, and the session stays on the table. There is a reason for that, and it is not ceremony. A reading that follows you out of the room stops being a record and starts being a lens. You begin to see the day through it. And then the day starts confirming it, because a day will confirm anything you look at hard enough through. The close is what stops the reading from going out into your life and recruiting evidence for itself. Now look back at what you just watched and notice that I did not use a single thing you did not already have. Day 3, the void was 3 card widths measured with a number before any flip. Day 6, the cluster was read as one unit before any individual member of it. Day 9, the void was measured against the cards, not against the table, which is what made the proportion mean anything. Day 12, the disconfirmation could come true against me. It was specific and it was dated. Day 13, and if it fails tomorrow, I will write that down without a defense. That is the entire session. There was no additional ingredient. There was no intuition I have that you lack, no sensitivity you have not been building, no step I performed that has not already been in your hands for days. What you watched was not a demonstration of skill. It was a demonstration of sequence. Every single thing that made that reading trustworthy came from doing the ordinary steps in the ordinary order, and from refusing 3 separate times to do the thing that felt more natural. I did not turn the satellite first, though I wanted to. I did not read the loudest cluster card first, though I wanted to. I did not skip the void when the session felt finished. though I wanted to. That is the spatial sight method. It is not a talent. It is a refusal performed in a fixed order about 20 times per session. You have been practicing it for 14 days. This is one complete session, start to finish. And here's the line I want to leave you with, because it is the whole of spatial sight compressed into a single observation about tonight. The card did not tell me the story. It filled in the last blank of a sentence the geometry had already written. By the time I turned that satellite over, the geometry had already told me something is watching from a long way out, maintaining its distance on purpose, with nothing mediating between it, and a situation that is fully known and already being handled. All of that came from footprints and empty space. Every word of it was available before a single card was named. The card told me what kind of watcher. That is a real contribution, and I'm glad to have it. But it is the last and smallest contribution, and it arrived into a structure that was already standing. Read geometry before meaning. 14 days ago, that was a slogan I asked you to accept on faith. Today, you watched it do actual work. Go and run your own session. Same 5 steps, same order. And when the interesting card is sitting there face down, being interesting, leave it. It is read forth. You're not asked to believe. You are asked to record. Tomorrow, the common mistakes, including the 3 I already made tonight, and the ones that do the most damage precisely because they feel like good practice. I'm Dr. Rivka Edery, signing off on day 14. I am so much looking forward to seeing you on day 15. Tomorrow, we have another full day, and I hope you'll join us. Thank you. Bye-bye.